Excellent, and welcome to the TADSummit Innovators. I am really happy to have Uku from Missente here. Uku, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to do this.
Excellent. And you are a big fave of Johnny. Johnny's been pushing me to get you on as soon as possible. So, Johnny.
Well, I've been pushing Uku all over online and calling him out. And the reason why, it's not me, it's the players on the field. And quick story, greatest baseball player that ever lived in the U.S., guy named Barry Bonds. I don't even know if Uku knows him. He didn't get voted into the Hall of Fame because the writers didn't like the fact that they thought he did steroids. Not saying you do steroids, Uku, but my point being is, but the players all know he was the greatest ever lived. So when I've been talking to people, when we started this podcast, I think I had 3 connections on LinkedIn, and now I've got, hundreds of people sending me messages, and we've got 80,000 subscribers. And the people that I respect all talk about him being the real deal, the guy that tells the truth, the guy that knows what he's doing, the guy that's unafraid, the guy that's not caught in the heroin cycle of things where he'll go out there and call it, where a lot of companies and a lot of people are just afraid to go against the ecosystem and the echo chamber at the end of the day. So look, the players respect him, and that's why he's here. And he's coming out here to talk about obviously his company, what he does, why do they all respect him so much, and then maybe we can pop in and help him get some advice on how to try to help us in the U.S. with our epidemic on messaging. Because the players need to respect the player, not the writers, not the organizations, not any of them. You know what I mean? So, Uku, I thank you for coming on.
Excellent.
Kind words.
So maybe you could start by introduction to both yourself and to Missente.
Yeah, I'm Uku. I'm the CEO of Missente. I'm an activist of all sorts, but not in the classical way, but more of a super active person in general. Yep. My story in Missente is kind of a fun one because 8 years ago, I started as a junior salesman. And in 8 years, I worked myself up from the junior salesman to the CEO role that I have today and also a shareholder. So I've kind of gone through the trenches of this business and seen all of the various aspects of this, as well as helping build the sort of the image that we have, especially in the industry right now. Yeah. And outside of that, I do a million things, physically very active, I'm a yoga trainer, I teach in high school, volunteer firefighter from time to time, have 2 kids, etc., etc. Sometimes everybody thinks that I have more hours in a day than I actually do. But in general, I try to sort of guide myself through some principles that I have, which have made themselves quite useful in the conversation of the business that Missente is as well. Missente is a business messaging company. We do messaging, nothing sort of hard about it, but it's more about who do we do that messaging for? Yeah. So we cater less towards trying to get every big brand in the world to send messages via us at like the bottom dollar price using every tool available to man, but rather work with like local businesses and try to advise them to do their business better, knowing that like text messaging is a small part of their overall scaling efforts. Yeah. So how can we help make that small part as secure as possible and as helpful as possible to help them scale? Because ultimately, we grow with them. Like some of the favorite companies that we work with are clients who've been around with us for 10 years, some 15 years. And we have been with them since they sent 1,000 messages a month to now them sending millions of messages a month. See, that trust over a 10-year period of time cannot be broken by giving them a bottom dollar price.
Exactly.
That's what sort of value is. That's what we try to focus on. Building for the more the mid-sized markets, building for businesses who are trying to do their business, and also companies that end up usually getting screwed over the most by things like AIT, by things like fraud that don't benefit from them, that don't have a long-term vested interest in some large brand, or don't have major government deals, or don't have their own lobbies, etc., etc., etc. Not like painting ourselves as fighting for the small guy, but rather doing business with the companies that actually run the business of day-to-day life, like the things that actually we use on a day-to-day basis, rather than the large behemoths that exist sometimes despite us rather with us.
No, that's excellent point, because I think, within those mid-sized companies, quite often the marketing manager within there is spread very thin. And messaging, as you said, is a small piece of a far bigger problem that they're trying to manage. And the thing I love from all your work over the years is that focus in helping the mid-sized well, all your customers. It's not just, but that's where the concentration is, being successful in optimizing for what they're specifically trying to do. Because it's a complex beast, messaging. You think it's just a small text? Well, no, because it's so small, the copy, the content that you're sending, when you're sending it, how you're sending it, even dumb stuff like the URL, making sure it's linked back to the brand. There's all those pieces for the marketing manager within that company. It's like, it's all details. It's but being that advisory to help them being successful and understanding the numbers. Because one of the things that always I found, and I'll ask it as a specific question, is one of the guarantees you have is 100% deliverability. Now, how do you achieve that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. The way to achieve that, we're trying to find the closest amount of deliverability possible.
Yes.
Is a combination of multiple things simultaneously. One, it's talking about what deliverability actually is and what influence it. So it's not just about, what connections you use, but also what your database is. Yeah. Have you cleaned your database? Do you know what numbers there are? How do you ask people to input the numbers when they're signing up to an account? How do you have them do, do you have them insert the country code, or do you put a country code in yourself? It's the details. Yes. Because every one of those details influences the quality of the database. Yeah. Now, what I could do is I could also sell them a number lookup tool and make more money off of that, or I could advise them to have a better business. They could go both ways, because I have the other tool set as well. You could build it yourself, or you could use this and this costs. Simple. And now it's a choice. Gotcha. It's no longer me trying to hide it and say that only I can do it. No, you can do it yourself if you wanted to. Yeah. So one aspect of that is understanding what it is. And the second aspect of that is understanding what a price point actually means. Yes. Because this is the hardest thing about business messaging in terms of SMS. Yeah. How do you know what the actual price is? You don't know. Yeah. I am super thankful for Telenor Norway for creating a public price list, because it helps me so much, because it gives me an instant reference point for anybody who does multi-market deals and uses somebody who also has a price list. I go, this is the price in Norway. Tell me if you go to them with a target and ask 25% below that, tell me if they can do it. And if they tell you that they can do it, that they can meet that target, ask them how. And if they come back to you with special deals or some other BS, then you know that it's just not trustworthy, because there isn't a price that exists on the market that is the sort of direct price. Exactly. I don't have a problem telling you what my margin is. I can tell you what my margin is. We sell value as a business. We help you, we advise you, we do this, we do that, and for that we expect to get paid. Yep. This is what we expect to get paid. This is the cost of our service. Yep. Right? And that's why, having conversations even on MEF panels, we had a back and forth with Ira, I think, Ira Cohen a few years ago, where we were the two people in the room who raised their hands stating that we would love public price lists on every market in the world. The same way that it exists now on Viber and on WhatsApp, because all of a sudden you have to sell value, not hide the price and try to do some shenanigans, because everyone then knows what the reference point for the price is. So we like that idea, because this way I have to justify the value that I bring to the table. And I know that I can bring value to the table. So I don't have a problem with sharing what that value is. Yeah. Right? And that's a completely different conversation to have. So when you then put that value conversation forward, say, this is what I'm charging, this is the market rate, these are the things that influence quality, and then I leave it up to you. What do you now want to do? Yeah. And there are businesses that go, sure, but they're offering me 25% less. Go, sure. by all means, use it.
And then you got to educate them why they got 25% left, and then they end up coming back to you at some point. So now I understand why you're threading a needle, customer centric. You're providing a service. One quick thing: are you part of obviously you're not a publicly traded company? Are you part of a group, a consortium of companies, or like how? So you're set up. So you're within a group of other companies.
Yes. So we're essentially part of our larger ICT group here in Estonia. It's quite a fun group as well, because the group started, I think, in late 90s, early 2000s, doing everything mobile. So starting off with doing like mobile sweepstakes, like mobile lottery and like stuff like that, early 2000s stuff. And throughout the history of the group, they started doing more things mobile. So they had a carrier billing arm, which was Fortumo. Fortumo got sold off to Boku, so part of the same group. Now we have companies like OneOT, that's an IoT company, gateways, and also holdings in other places. But this has also created a unique situation for Missente as well, where when Missente started in 2013, 2013, Missente started from day one as a profitable company because we were a spin-off. So when we spun out of the group, we started off with our own clientele. So Missente has never taken in VC money. We've never taken in debt. We've never taken in any other money. We're only reliant on the group. And if I need an investment or cash, or I want to build something, I go to the group, right? So it's always our own stuff. And throughout the history of the group, every single piece of that business has been quite independent in how they function. Right? And it's been more about not hyper scaling, but rather building a consistently profitable business throughout. So Missente has been profitable for 11 years straight. Right? So that means that we haven't needed to add any other money to the pool. We haven't needed to take the investments. We haven't had debt. We're sort of a very stable long-term business. So there's a long runway. And because of that long runway, because we have our own cash, it also means that we get to make decisions for 3 years from now, not for the investors that expect a return next quarter.
And not based on the pressures that a Twilio or a Cinch have, or these companies. You don't have that pressure, which answers a lot of questions for me. So from your own self, because obviously, I mean, we got a guy named Tony Robbins here in the U.S. If he ever got his hands on you and saw what you could do, you'd be like the new Tony Robbins. Because the amount of things that you do in a day, I mean, fireman too, really, pretty impressive. So from that standpoint, but for you personally, right? So you started as junior sales, you've worked your way up, which is really impressive. Are you in it? How old are you? I mean, you look like a pretty young guy.
31.
Oh, so you're a baby. So you're not even thinking of exits or anything. Wow, Alan, we found the real deal. This guy's going to be a superstar. Because when we get to our later conversations, because we need somebody who understands all the pieces. So basically, you don't have the pressures of everybody else, which is the reason why you call it out. And you don't have the pressure of scaling large and going more global because you're offering more of a service. So basically, you could conceivably take advantage of all the disgruntled companies that get caught. Burn me once,
Yeah.
Of course.
Shame on you. Burn me once, shame on you. So you probably got people coming.
The best thing to build a long-term relationship in our case, or one of the things that has been the biggest builder of trust, is when companies leave us to test somebody else. They go, they switch, half a year later, they're back. And we go, well, we're not going to start by, I told you so, but we sort of go, sure. So how's your business today? How can I help you? What can we do? How we can build this better? And sort of, I think so many businesses undervalue trust as a mechanism in business, because a lot of people think that businesses do business with businesses. Businesses don't do business. People do business. I talk to somebody, they talk to me. So even we've gotten to a position where, not saying names, of course, but we're in a conversation with, one of the hyperscalers of the world, big app, very important, et cetera, et cetera. And we've sort of gone straight out from the gate, them asking us, hey, service, we saw that you're also global, et cetera, et cetera. And I just sort of go, yeah, we're not going to be your main service provider because you're out of our scope. Yeah. Because most of the stuff you have, I'm not going to be good at what you need. However, I can advise you and maybe fix one or two things for you, even up to the point where I go, okay, so you have some issues in Africa, for example. It's a difficult area to work in. Sure, I have a partner who does USSD. We don't do USSD, but I have a partner that does that. And in Africa, USSD is a good choice. Would I recommend it to anybody else? Probably not. Would it be wise of me to offer them USSD where I could offer them alternative services that I could provide? Sure, but I would rather have a good long-term conversation where we help them solve things and they trust us with their important business because they know we can deliver, and we say what we can deliver is what we actually can deliver, versus trying to push for everything, show that we're just another sort of company that approaches them with bottom dollar pricing that doesn't deliver after like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm not into that. I don't need that. I don't need that hassle. I'll help you fix two things, whether I help you fix them or whether through help of fixing something. But they will know that when they come back to us, they'll be coming back to us for a solution to a problem. And if I say that I can solve it, we actually solve it. Like, that's what businesses, I think, are kind of missing. Yeah. And it even comes down to the point as well where, because we're a small company, like we're 40 people, right? Then everybody talks to each other a lot.
40 is not that small.
Yeah, well, okay.
So in this industry, it is. If there's like 5 or 6, but 40's that's a big head count, especially with all the technology. So I remember when we first started, when I first restructured Tintech, we had 40 people.
Yeah. So think about it. So it's 40 people, but here's the thing. The people that do the aggregation, the partnership side of things, what we call trading, because it's kind of like selling connections is kind of like day trading.
Yeah.
We call it exactly. That's kind of what it is. So
day trading to zero.
Exactly. So you have day trading, and then you have the enterprise side or the retail side of things. But those people talk to each other. So they have conversations. So we take care to teach people who work in retail the business. But if you take any large players, average account manager, they know F all about the business.
Yeah.
About how it functions as a whole. Even up to the point where, I go to a call with sort of a regional enterprise. We have a conversation with them. They ask, why is my price raising by 100K a year? And I go, well, market dynamics. But the market dynamic mainly we're looking for is, there used to be a very large influx of fraud in the past couple of years of a specific type of fraud. Some of it has now gone off. The market has taken a hit. Volumes are down, so no one's making the same size commitments. So because nobody's making the same size commitments, certain preferential deals are off the table. And because the preferential deals are off the table, you revert to the old price, which used to previously be the price. And now all of a sudden there's a market increase. Yeah. I go, why does that influence me? It goes like, well, because let's be honest, a lot of them don't care what you think. Because even though the market dynamics have shifted, do you think that MNOs are going to drop the size of the revenue commitment? Why would they? Why would they drop the size of the revenue commitment? So if now no one's picking up the slack of a revenue commitment, they have to work for it themselves. Of course, they're going to keep the price at a higher level because they need to compensate the work that they're putting in there, because they have quarterly goals and at max yearly goals that they need to achieve, which brings us to the biggest bottom problem that exists and why things don't get better is that if our incentives are quarterly and yearly at max, you're never going to make a decision that benefits 3 years down the line.
Yeah. And you have too many chefs in the kitchen. And, it goes back to the story I read, this brilliant piece from TBRI. You should really take a read at it. I came about it by accident. And really outside of the U.S. So in the U.S., we have 3 mobile operators. Their market caps are $500 billion. T-Mobile is the largest valued telecom company in the world, even ahead of China Mobile right now. Internationally, you have a problem with capital and capital being too expensive. And these carriers relying on these deals that they make with gateways and the money up front. And then the increase in prices because of the fraud. But this is a really refreshing to see somebody like yourself in Missente. And now I think I understand why, Alan, that he's in a really good position. He started, they started with partners. They've been profitable for 11 years. That's unheard of. I mean, only company that I know that's like that is Soprano Design. The only company that I know that's legitimately profitable. I mean, they're and built like that. I mean, Richard built sick business over there. But I don't really. So everybody else in this industry, for me, I came into this industry by accident, restructuring a company called Iris. Come from a different industry, voice industry, prepaid industry, and then really got blown away by the people that I met early on. I'm going back 2013, 14, when you started 15. And some of the very people that we talk about that are doing hundreds of millions a year, I wouldn't let them, I wouldn't let them in my house for an hour without somebody watching them. So I think, to meet somebody like yourself where, I'm not checking my pockets is I think at the core of the messaging industry, especially in Europe. Because, look at a lot of the companies are over there. And it's a real pleasure to have this refreshing conversation. We wanted to get into, some of the issues with AIT, what could possibly solve it. But I think you kind of took us by surprise. And I think really celebrating what kind of company you have. Let me ask you another question, because I believe there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies or roll-ups, right? So I recently, even yesterday, I posted to Twilio. I said, Twilio, you did a $2 billion stock buyback, right? Take $1 billion and buy Cinch, because Cinch has got 843 million outstanding shares, right? They're at $2.30 US. They could buy 50+% of Cinch, right, for a little more than 800 million. Like they spent 750 million on Cineverse buying 49% of a company that they don't own and got no value for. So I literally called it out in a post last night, because something has to happen, right? And first of all, I think it's a great business move for Twilio to do that. I think it's great for Cinch too, because unless these guys go out there and, because look, Cinch, a profit, they got a profit. They got good revenue. They've got really good people, I think, at the ship head right now, but they got too many outstanding shares, which is the reason why the markets are calling for Twilio to do a buyback. But it's not going to help Twilio, because Twilio has already won the game. They got billions in the bank. They're already won the game. The guy just slapped around the activist investors. So I believe there needs to be a consolidation, because I believe in Europe, there's multiple companies that if you guys don't buy them or eat them up, I even told the guy from Link, I said, you need to start issuing shares and buying some of these companies that lost their exit. So the $200 billion market caps that existed a couple of years ago are gone. And they may not come back unless the industry works together. And Uku, I'm just changing my focus on the financial side of it. Is there an opportunity for you or your group that wants to roll up some of these companies? Like, are you in the mindset, you're only 31, so I don't even know I'm having this conversation with you. I think you're in a unique situation. My advice to you is to start thinking about, if you take Missente's culture, and if you take your mindset, which I haven't heard this in years. It's such a breath of fresh air. I think you could take over the industry the right way. And I think there's the scaling would come organically and naturally. Do you see yourself acquiring, or are you still in a happy-go-lucky, I'm happy to be here. I want to be a fireman. I got 2 kids. I've got other responsibilities. Are you happy where you are? Are you comfortable growing? Because I think the opportunity for somebody like yourself who understands it from top to bottom and the customer experience is nobody has that. I haven't seen it. Alan, have you met anybody like this?
In other industries, but they are special.
In our industry.
In messaging, no. Simple as that.
I haven't.
I mean, the nearest analogy in terms of the overall business, not the individual, is with customer focus and the advisory is like Cameo. They invest in their customers. And for them, in the US, it's a tough market. And they've had to fire some of their customers simply because of you start generating bad traffic, it impacts all your customers. And this horror
Okay.
stories going on around 1-800 SMS. So I think definitely as an individual, but and I'm sorry to derail, I just want to take it back to what important point you made earlier, Uku, which is the price increases we're seeing from carriers. Now, they were, basically, they knew that AIT was driving, particular aggregators to make these ridiculous prepayments. So, and as a result, the enterprises have gone, that's it. It's just I don't trust, the traffic volumes, the claims that are being made. So I'm like Bank of America, Amex, just don't send the traffic anymore. So the carriers are selling less because they enable
and then raising their prices to get to the same number because they don't care.
That's not how business works. Well, unless you're a monopoly.
That's how business works. And it's the aggregators. If Uku was in charge, or his mentality, they wouldn't have cannibalized themselves. So basically, the overall operators don't care. They have people, like he said about the Estonia, they just got to hit their numbers, right? So is it the MNOs? Look, the MNOs are all going broke. There's all consolidation. They can't restructure it. Outside of the U.S., I mean, half the world, they're going broke. They're done pipes. And where's the growth? Everybody's got a phone, right? There's a race to zero there too. So really, the aggregators, if they had Uka's mindset, would have grown the industry. But now, you've got carriers are going, okay, here's RFP. Who's going to give me 20? Give me 20 million today. Give me 30. I know Tintech just win it. Thorsten was running around there trying to raise, I think it was like 25 million for AT&T Mexico. He even went next to the old founder for the money because you couldn't get the money because they don't have it. So now you get stuck with up payments. And then if you don't make your contact, you got to give the money back. I remember, was it last year when Cinch had a report giving the money back to, I think it was Jazz Telecom or something in Pakistan. Yeah. They didn't hit their commitments and they had to pay them back millions of dollars. What kind of business model is that, Uka?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of the problem, isn't it? Because
here's the problem.
No one really cares enough, because business messaging, even if you look at it from the telco perspective, it makes them money, but it's not like the most important part of their business. It's a fraction of their overall business. So if they could, and from their perspective, they only see the short-term gains. And this is what I loved about, Nick Lane did a presentation at the last MEF event that this industry is now getting a lesson in proper market economics and understanding that there exists a thing called price elasticity. This market is finding it out the hard way, that macroeconomic trends and long sort of known facts of how markets work also apply to this industry. Like, you cannot push it that far without having it break. And here's the thing that I've been talking about for the past 3 years, and this is one of those I told you so moments that I wish I wasn't right, was that the moment we know when we're screwed is when you have large enterprises leaving. Because when Bank of America or Amex pulls out, they're not going to come back. Might come back, but they're going back on WhatsApp. And WhatsApp's sort of going, lovely, brilliant. They don't even need to really do anything. The reason why WhatsApp has become so popular is because of everything that the business messaging industry has done. I think Nick also shared the stat of, and again, might be wrong here, but it was something akin to the lines of the projected growth of what WhatsApp was supposed to be versus what it actually ended up being in terms of total share of revenue was up by $1 billion compared to what the projection was. And an extra $1 billion, they're sort of just going, brilliant. No, keep doing it. Just you.
But look who's leading these companies. You look at all these big companies. These people, they were in the right place at the right time. Messaging exploded, right? But messaging is still, it's the most important thing for the consumers and for those businesses because of the open rate. So where the carriers don't look at it from the revenue, they are looking at it as from revenue. I'm going to take a different side of that. They want that money. They need that money, whatever it may be. In the USA, which we're going to be exposing, the mobile operators were making zero in A2P messaging. Now, because they set up a scam front called the campaign registry saying, we're going to use this to stop spam, which doesn't stop spam. And the campaign registry even admitted to the FCC, we don't do anything, right? They shifted $20+ billion a year. And $20+ billion a year equals the dividends they're paying. So I'd love to really dive in with you because you bring the credibility that I don't have access to. I have, and we don't. You know what I mean? Alan, brilliant, knows just about everything you could possibly think of under any subject in technology, telecom. It's amazing. I can ask this guy anything. It's like Alexa. But when it comes down to market dynamics, finance, and where the industry's going, I think it's important. And I think people got to capitalize now. Now it's going to be, survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Right? It's survival of the fittest right now, Uko. And I tell you this as an older man. You're 31 years old. With your mind, the way you think, the way you communicate, and the comfort level, how are you? Shed some of those extra activities you do and start thinking about how you take over the world. Or at least take over the people that need your mentality, that need your service type, customer focused, understand the economics, and you understand the long play. I think, look, you walk in a room with investors here in New York and they're throwing money at you at the end of the day because you just tell it like it is. So I don't mean to rack up your world, but from the finance side, there's a lot of companies out here that are even public that really that they need a roll-up strategy because it's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's changing. What is SMS down? Uka, what's the real number on that?
Realistically,
Not revenue.
if you look at not revenue, but I think the volumes are down for like 15 to 20%.
15 to 20%.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sort of reasonable estimate. Yeah. But I would switch back for a second. I actually challenge your notion on roll-ups. The reason why I challenge it, that idea of rolling up more companies, or maybe why we might not want to do that is I
didn't say we, I said you.
Yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, but
I said you.
I shouldn't roll.
You know what?
Fine.
There's gonna be 5 dogs, but there might be one good one that can follow.
Sure.
Uku.
Sure. But here's the thing: do I want to I look at it from this perspective? Do I want to roll up a bunch of companies? In which case, I don't know whether I can change their mindset enough to do what I need them to do. One. Yeah. And second, is that even best for the customers? Because I'm looking ahead and going, okay, so is this channel ever going to be good enough for what I want for my customers? Or are there other channels that are taking its place that will bring more value to them? So now I'm looking forward going, instead of trying to fight for this SMS Industries piece of pie, I might exit and do something else instead and start driving the mid-markets that I see in towards the direction that I think is better. And if I then see traction there, that's when I might roll up a business that already has the feature functionality or the people or the mindset that could help us bring there. Right now, I think the industry is in a flux and there will be a lot of roll-ups, and there's always VCs that sort of come up to us as well.
There's not going to be a lot of roll-ups. There's a lot of distress. It's not roll-ups. People are caught. And a lot of these companies have to continue doing the AIT. They got to continue paying their bills. I mean, you had Bird fighting with Cinch. What do you want Cinch to do? Like, what do you want these people to do at the end of the day, especially on the aggregator side? Like, what do you want these companies that have these big gateway deals that have to come up with deposits and they have no choice but to run their own AIT through it at the end? They don't have a choice, right? Because they didn't get their exit. So,
why don't they have a choice? Like, that's my main question. Like,
they don't have a choice because they have hundreds of employees. I'll tell you why. Because they have hundreds of employees. They have people's lives they got to take care of. They got to pay their bills. A lot of these owners of these companies, well, half of them are good people. They care about their staff. They care about their people. They got to keep their margin going. They don't really care. Do I screw them or screw that lady right there with 3 kids that feeds herself every week? So I disagree, because I know a lot of these people, because I was trying to sell Tintech for years. So there's nobody I didn't try to sell it to. I mean, I'm going to try to sell it to you too. Maybe I'll do it offline. But I like to do it over here because it pisses off Thorsten. Fox, I'm not selling Tintec. I'm selling you Thorsten because we're all his Stepford wives. So he just slaps us. But he built an amazing business. We almost had it sold to GMS. We spent 14 months with GMS in diligence, which is a story I'm going to tell online. And that would have been such a great deal. I mean, the CEO at GMS, Charles, is just a great guy. Built that company, quadrupled the revenue, and Yuri, the founder. They built a great business. But you got companies in gateway business. What are they going to do? The M&Os are telling them one thing. Mm-hmm. For me personally, and I hate to say this, I first of all, I have a problem with Google altogether because they're silencing me on YouTube. I don't really care if they got to overpay. Because you know what? The next problem with the RCS in the USA and Apple is Google's going to come in here with RCS, and they think our politicians are going to allow them to just read everybody's messages. Because the US, Uka, and I'm going to do a hard right now because we're done with you, mm-hmm. is free speech in the US. In my country, free speech is going to be at the forefront. And we live in a new world, which nobody knows better than you, right? Nobody knows who's on your border, that we live in a new world. And the industry has to be cognizant. The world is not at peace. No. At the end of the day, it's just not. It's disgraceful what's going on, but it is what it is. But as an industry, communications is critical, and messaging is critical. Messaging is the number one form of communication in the world, bar none. And just a few years ago, robocall. Do you know that in 2021, 321,000 Americans filed claims with the Federal Trade Commission for $1,000 less that they'll never get back? That's how pissed off they were. So now think about how many real people did that. And now you've got the new generation of kids. They don't call. Kids in the neighborhood, they don't call. You can't get a phone call out of a kid under 15 years old. It's all about text. So in the US, we have this spam problem that is at epidemic proportions. And now with AI, it's going to be scary. And then you got the older generation that, what grandma getting a call from her dead husband on AI, and now she thinks he's alive. It's really scary. So, I want to take a segment, Alan, and maybe you could really go into helping us, because everybody respects you. And now listening to you, it's amazing what type of an individual you are. If I had a daughter, I'd want her to marry a guy like you. But that you're ready. My daughter's 5. So
yeah.
So maybe if you got a young kid, we could set him up one day. Yeah. But I think the issue we have here, Alan and Uku, is basically spam.
Yeah.
Messaging spam, and we're looking at identity. We had a brilliant podcast with Sakura the other day, and then we had a brilliant podcast with Noah Rafalco. Instead of doing it now, would you be able to squeeze out an hour? Because Alan, we got to prepare for this guy. Would you be able to come back, Uka, and help my country understand how the problem is solved? We believe it's identity. You might not. You may look at something else. You can answer that question quickly on your own. Is that something that you believe you have obviously you have the experience and the knowledge? Is that something that is appealing to you?
Sure, I'd gladly have a discussion. I don't think that I have a lot of solutions, but
no, we're not asking you for the solution. We're asking you to look at the solutions that we find that are coming at us and saying, "Hey, Uka, this guy full of shit. This guy full of shit. Can this work? Can that work?" Because Alan's great and he knows just about everything. But when you're a company like yourself and you're in it, right, and you understand the everyday, the economics and the whole metrics of it, you add a whole other dynamic to understanding and having this vetted, because we're going to start working on identity, because I don't really know what else is there, because it's got to stop. Because don't tell me we can't stop spam. Uka, you have a big spam problem in your country?
Sure. The two main types of scam is one, anything related to fraudulent phone calls, but not robocalls.
Forget phone calls. We're talking about messaging.
Scam.
Let's leave.
And and it's getting worse all the time. And I guess one of the things that pisses me most off about like text messaging scam is, and we have a very intimate view of this, working with the Estonian Banking Association, with the Estonian Police's cybercrime division, working through them to an extent with, you know, Europol, having conversations, etc., and realizing that my big issue with scam, and I'm sure that this is the same thing for you as well, is a singular sentence that came from a press release or a conversation that was had with MNOs where they say, we don't really see ourselves as a part of the problem. How is that possible when you send the text messages to a handset? How are you not a part of the problem if you do the last trigger?
They are the problem. It's their responsibility to block the consumer. It's their responsibility to find a solution the same way they take that $150 a month on that phone bill that you take every month.
But
and in the US,
because...
they got all the SIM farm traffic. All the carriers are running SIM farm traffic, and then T-Mobile comes out with fines that, you know, right now, if T-Mobile wanted to, they could fine Twilio tomorrow morning $200 billion with the Zero fines. $200 billion. We have podcast 19. Was it 19 that we did with T-Mobile? They went quiet on it, but they can go like this and just fine you, and you got no court. So we're definitely aligned, and that is the problem. The problem
so we got
is
the date then for
responsible.
an identity session. Okay.
Are you on? Oh, we have
He's
you?
on. He's on.
Thank you so much, Uka. It's good to have somebody with your, because we got to get going on identity.
Yeah.
And real quickly before we shift, Missente, I saw this thing, and I have to bring it up. So I'm looking at this. I don't know what you call this thing, but it's this chart here by Juniper, right? I don't see your name on here. I don't see I don't see Missente, right? It's kind of amazing. I mean, I see Tintech. It's like really, really small, which is kind of funny because I may joke and poke at them, but it's over 100 million in revenue. And Thorsten basically started as SS7 messaging. And then you have Infobit ahead of Twilio and Vonage. So I put a post last night, Alan, we got to do our own chart. And it's like the most amazing deals, right? We'll talk about the slickest deal, how Vonage got $6.8 billion out of Ericsson, right? Which we're going to get to. And then how Cineverse is way back here. They should be number one. They got $750 million out of Twilio for giving them a minority stake. And then way back here, you got Soprano, way back here, a little place. I mean, what is this? Can you explain this to me?
Analysts don't understand the market. They do not understand the market. Every landscape is bullshit.
Help me with this one.
Okay, so
and GMS, great company, they're way back here. What is that all? So you're profitable for 13 years. Besides Soprano, I don't know anybody else.
Here's the fun part with this. And this isn't just, you know, in the business messaging industry. Take a Gartner quadrant.
Yeah.
And most of those there's a way that you get yourself presented in these types of situations. Sometimes it's a popularity contest. Sometimes it's an assisted positioning. Sometimes it's you stumble upon that list because you're too hard to deny for a certain period of time. Let's put it that way. There are certain businesses like Soprano on that list that just tends to be a bit too hard to deny. So you have to give the quadrant.
You have to put them on there
by putting them on there, right? And there are certain businesses that are there, for example, that you can't ignore not putting on the list either, because you cannot have that list without a Twilio.
Yep.
Because they're just too.
How are they not the leader? How are they not number one?
That's the better question. That's the assisted positioning. There's always going to be a little bit of bias.
It's not even a conversation.
Sure. But, you know, if you really, really wanted to, you could definitely find an angle under which one business is better than the other. And sometimes they get more help in finding those angles in certain cases than others do.
So who serves better coffee in the lunchroom?
Well, it's
About the only
but
one
it's
I could find.
The category is broken. It's because they say CPaaS or CPaaS. As
We need to do this, Alan. We're gonna do a breakdown from profitability, what we know, because SMS is not going away no matter what anybody thinks.
But then Twilio plays a role. But remember, they are in the beginning, before basically Wall Street messed it all up. They said we're programmable communications. It was the broader category. Yeah, and
Wall Street just needed a name to make it go to $80 billion, and without Wall Street, none of this would exist.
Exactly.
All these companies made a lot of money. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I mean, the Vonage guys cashed out big time.
Oh yeah.
Root Mobile got a big number.
Yeah.
At Proximus, right? I mean, I know Soprano had a PE deal. Good for him. Look at some of these companies that got deals.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Some of them really cashed out. The Cinch guys, those guys, they killed it.
Oh my
I mean, they
God.
took a
And then
lot
with
of money in.
SoftBank, they bought back all the stock at a massive discount. It was crazy.
Oh no, they completely pulled their underwear over their head, Cinch. And then you have Infobit. They took in money. They may bought some assets. I'm not really sure where they stand right now. Great connectivity, great platform. And you have CM that's public. Link, where did you even Link? I don't even see Link. Link is not even Link. Oh, they paid their bills. Link is over here. They're behind Cinch. So they got Link in fifth. Okay. It's just I had to just ask Uku that question, but I'm good. I think we should do something with like our own special thing. We got to keep it. We got to keep it fun.
Yep. Absolutely.
You also there's also one thing that you might want to look into just sometimes, just to sort of see in the periphery. There are always companies that in their communication take a pot shot at one or another business. But look at some of the businesses who never get taken shots against very publicly. And
that's because they're afraid. They're talking about the people that they're afraid of getting a knock on their door, companies. I know.
There are certain businesses that you have a fight between Twilio, Bird, and Cinch, right? They take pot shots at each other. But there are some big names that never get mentioned in that conversation because
there's a reason for it. There's a reason for
that.
I know. I get all the information from people. Don't tell anybody. I'm saying you got to see the stuff that I get sent to me. I'm like, why are you sending this to me? You insane? But yeah, you know what? That's another conversation that we'll have. That'll be truth in Euro telecoms.
Fair.
And quite frankly, I got enough cease and desist and people threatening to kill me. I don't really need that one right now. and I got no bone to pick. I got no bone to pick with any of them. They didn't try to bury anybody. But I know what you're saying exactly. But as long as we know, but somebody should come out and call it out.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely if you can get Thorsten talking, boy. But offline, I'll tell you some stories, Uku, that make your hair stand up. Because the Cinch boys and Thorsten they always worked together. They had their own little. That's when CLX started. They had their own thing going.
Yeah,
those two.
Yeah.
I keep begging, and then Cinch tried to buy him, but then they would have shut down all the employees, and Thorsten didn't want that, and we screwed it up, and then tried to take Thorsten public in another company. We got to tell all the story. Because I need to get onto it because the czar is just going to blow up the industry now with free speech. He went for the jugular.
Oh yeah. Well, in the US, I mean, it was
in the US. But Uku, do we have a commitment from you, public, Alan? You make sure. But do we have a commitment for you to come back?
Sure.
And I mean pretty quickly. I mean on identity. We need to solve this problem in the US. We need you back.
So I'm drawing a line here. Thank you so much,
All right, guys.